Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another podcast. And I've got a good friend of mine, Mike Lee, and I'm excited for this one. So, Mike is a successful real estate investor. He's done over 200 deals, whether it's wholesaling, flipping, or short term rentals. Mike, you've done a lot in all those areas. Now, that being said, it's not a real estate podcast, but it's a no regrets podcast. So, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on the podcast. And I can't wait to share my life with no regrets.
Yeah, man. So, man, why did you agree to this? Why does this topic matter to you?
Okay. Well, I agreed to this because, first of all, this is going to actually be these questions that you had, I'm very inspired by them. And when you told me about your idea to start this podcast, I was very inspired because many people live their life full of regrets. They die with regrets. And I'm somebody that doesn't want to live an ordinary life. I want to live an extraordinary life. And so living a life without regrets, to me, is one of the most important things you can do.
And that's why I wanted you on here, because we share the same mindset. We want to make the most out of this life. We want to, maximize our purpose and potential. And, as much as we want to make money, I believe we both want massive impact. We want to leave this place changing people's lives for the better.
Absolutely. And if you recall, we've talked about this a few times. Every time you bring up the podcast, I'm like, this is going to be super uncomfortable for me. So I'm excited. I'm excited to share answer any questions you may have and share a little bit about my own perspectives on the topic.
That's cool, man. And to be fair, this is like my 5th episode and I'm still very uncomfortable doing it.
Okay, we can both be uncomfortable together.
Exactly. So, talking about regrets, what do you think the most common regrets people have are that they're battling with?
Okay. Worrying unnecessarily would be a big one. Catastrophizing what could happen in the future. And there's actually a study that was done on that about 90% of what people worry about never happens.
Wow.
I don't have the exact studies to cite, but if you Google it, you will actually find this information. It's very thought-provoking. So 90% of what you're worrying about never happens. And then they also had another percentage. Even if it does happen, it's not as bad as you originally thought it was going to be.
That is really cool. Mm-hmm. I'm just making notes. I think that's awesome because that's a perspective I haven't heard yet, right? Like you're like the third person I've interviewed, and it's like everyone has a different perspective on this. And that's what I love about this.
So what that means to me is that, and I think everybody does worry. If somebody tells you they don't worry, that's got to be some BS, because there's thousands of crazy thoughts that go through your head every day, right? So I believe that everybody does have these worrisome thoughts. It matters how you respond to it, though.
So what is the best way to respond to worry?
Personally, for me, worrisome thoughts enter my mind when I'm in a state of inaction.
Okay.
Tony Robbins has a saying, I think it's one of his earliest books. He says, motion creates emotion. I was taught that when I started doing sales.
Okay.
About 10 or 15 years ago. And if you sit on your ass when you're doing sales, all these worrisome thoughts start to enter your head about how you're not going to do as much sales as you were hoping to do. You're not going to be able to eat because you're not making sales. But for some reason, when you're in you're doing high levels of action, all those worrisome thoughts somehow disappear because you can't take action and worry at the same time. At least this is what I found.
No, you can't. And actually, worry paralyzes you, doesn't it?
It does.
It keeps you from doing the very thing that will be productive and keep the worst case scenario from happening.
Yes. So I think when we talk about regrets, I would hate to be looking back on my life as someone that allowed worrying to stop me from achieving anything that I was, setting out to do. So if I fall on my face, I can accept that. I would rather accept that than not take action and worry about it.
Right. Like, honestly, like my situation this year, right? Where probably the worst case scenarios actually happened, you could say. I'm still thankful I did it. I'm still thankful it happened instead of not doing it, not taking the action. Because a lot of good can still come of it. And normally the worst case scenario doesn't happen, but I think inaction and wondering what if is worse.
I believe so, yes. And I mean, this is not a real estate show. I'm not going to get into the real estate side, but as you know,
you can say whatever you want, man.
Okay. A lot of people are going through a lot of stress in the real estate market in Ontario right now because, it inflated like crazy. A lot of values went up, appreciation, and then it tanked really quickly. So anyone that bought properties in the last 1.5 years, a lot of these people are feeling the pain right now, whether they bought single family, whether they bought multifamily properties. And I think as an individual, how you respond to that pain will define you moving forward.
And the best thing to do is keep your feet moving, keep taking action.
Agreed, 100%.
That's cool, man. That's cool. So, Mike, why do people struggle with regrets? Why do people have regrets and why are they struggling?
Why do they struggle with regrets? I believe, if they're struggling with regrets, they're probably looking back in the past, this person, whoever this individual is. And your life is not happening in the past. It's also not happening in the future, right? It's happening right now.
That's good. That's good.
So if you stay stuck in the past, you're personally, I can only speak for my own personal self. But when I get stuck in the past, it eats me alive. I've been through, I have a lot of unique experiences. I've had, I was in sports. I had injuries, very catastrophic injuries. I managed to come back from them, but my body is not exactly the same as it was before. I spent some time dwelling on that, regretting that I hadn't taken certain actions, but I realized at a certain point that that's my past. This what happens now moving forward, and what happens today is all that matters, right?
Yeah, like we can beat ourselves up all we want and it doesn't change anything.
Absolutely.
It actually just keeps us from doing more productive things and improving ourselves.
Yes. So I believe part of regrets has to do with living in the past. And if you can see past that and get to the present day, I would find that in my own personal life, those regrets seem to dissipate. I use an example of injuries in the past. I've also had, bad business partnerships that dissolved. I've had, imagine you're doing a big deal and the deal blows up in your face at the last second. And if you keep dwelling on these things, it's going to make you real sour,
And I mean, at the end of the day, the more things you do, the more action you take, the more mistakes you'll make. And I think it's important that we also learn to give ourselves grace and forgive ourselves, for past errors.
Yes. You
Um,
got it.
and I mean, so that comes from being in a state of constantly punishing myself, right? Like I've looked back on my year, how my own house flipping business didn't make it this year. And, I've probably gone back thousands of times, punished myself. What could I have done different? What should I have done different? And like at the end of the day, that changes nothing. And you have to learn to forgive yourself, take the lessons. But if you don't forgive yourself, I don't think you can move forward.
No. I'll share it right here, right now. It's not a business podcast, but we already discussed this. I approached a mentor of mine recently because I was beating myself up too. And, I bought a lot of properties when the market was going crazy. And I was expecting to make a lot of money with that. And when the market shifted, instead of making a lot of money, I lost some. I lost quite a bit of money. The losses aren't even completely finished yet. So I beat myself a lot. I beat myself up quite a bit about it. When I approached this mentor of mine, the exact words he used was, "You got to learn to take this with grace. It's part of your story now." And giving yourself permission to forgive yourself, or just, when you were right, when you take a lot of action, there is going to be sometimes mistakes that are made, or every success has failures behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so giving yourself permission to move past the failures is a really big thing. It's really important.
And like for me, it probably took me 4 or 5 months to be able to get to that point where I was ready to forgive myself and move forward. And, the quicker you can do it, the better. That's a tough 4 or 5 months where it's just the constant cycle of punishing yourself.
I can imagine, man. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine, but it's tough. It's tough.
But you know what? I think in a way, that's what a life living without regrets looks like. It's a lot of ups and downs. It's a hard life. If you want to live without regrets, you need to take action. You need to do things. You need to push yourself, because I think the opposite of living without regrets is complacency, right? So I think, that's part of the journey. And it's funny, like your mentor, I don't know if you want to name his name or not. I was just texting with him. He's a great guy.
He's an amazing person. I'm going to leave them nameless for now, but amazing person.
And I promise he will be on the podcast one day.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike, I know we talked about this already, but what do you do to live without regrets each day?
Okay. There's a routine. I don't even know if you want to call this a routine or a ritual, but there's something that happens to me when I wake up and I get my day started. Like everybody else, I oftentimes wake up and I don't want to get out of bed, or I'm not motivated. Motivation is very temporary, right? So it comes, it goes. You go to an event, a mastermind, a conference, you get pumped up, and the motivation dissipates in a week.
That's right.
Or at least it does. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, come the following week when you get kicked in the teeth, it's hard to stay motivated.
Absolutely. So those motivations, they don't last. There's a ritual that takes place for me, and I don't know if I do it intentionally or I don't, but when I get up, I go look at myself in the mirror and I put on a metaphorical war paint.
Okay.
And I'm like, let's do this. Let's seize the day. From here on out, we're going to seize the day. And I don't know what that exactly does to me, but I can tell you that it doesn't matter how I feel. I'm going to make the most of today. No matter what hits me, I'm going to make the most out of it. And that, for some reason, that just, I feel like it propels me forward.
And you know what? I think people have to figure out what works for them, because we're all different. Whatever we have to do to live without regrets each day, to make it happen and make the most of it. Like for me, like this is a big part of it. Just being here and having this podcast and having these conversations. Like this is what excites me. Like we're recording. It's almost 10 at night. Normally I'm in bed, but I'm wide awake because this is what I want to talk about, man.
So yeah, when you're on purpose, like when you're on your purpose, you can go all day long.
That's all right. Long. So you were talking a little bit about a comeback story. Talk a little bit more about your comeback story around like living without regrets.
Okay. I have a couple comeback stories.
Okay.
I'm gonna stay out of the business world for a second.
Got it.
So I had some business comeback stories too. So, but let's talk about. I mentioned an injury that I had a bit earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
So I in my 20s, I pushed myself very hard, both in business and in sports. Now in business, I was driving a lot, going to meetings. There would be times where I'd be on the road, like basically like trucker type of hours where I'm on the road all day long.
Wow.
Going to meetings. I remember there was like a 3-day stint where I had a sales meeting in Windsor, and then I went to Ottawa, and then went back to Windsor, and then went back to Ottawa in like 2 or 3 days.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and while I was doing this, I was training to do Olympic weightlifting. I was competing at a national level, and I was just coming out of the car and just ripping a 2-3 hour workout and getting right back into the car and just doing it. Unfortunately, that took a toll on my body at a certain point, and I had all these. I had lingering injuries that I guess I ignored them. They got worse over time, and it was in my lower back. So it eventually broke down. There were several signs that I should stop or slow down, but I ignored all of them. And one day it just got worse. One day it just kept getting worse and worse. I remember it like it's yesterday. And I had about 3 months where I was in a lot of pain, but I was still functional. And then I sneezed one day, and I felt something had changed. It's almost like I was going through adrenaline rush at that point, because I like something happened and my body's like in a state of adrenaline right now. So I don't know what happened. I'm just gonna go lay down. Well, when I woke up, I couldn't walk anymore.
Wow.
I had all the athleticism, everything I identified with as a human being, because I identified as I'm an athlete. I'm world class. I'm super strong. I would say all these things in my head. And when you wake up and you don't even have enough strength to stand up anymore, all of a sudden, just like that, it's very, very difficult to mentally grasp the mental warfare that takes place. And I had to come to grips with the fact that I'm probably not going to be the same athlete anymore. It took at least 18 months to fully, I'm functional again. Thankfully, right? But I remember I was like 6 months into rehab, and I would just have to like tie a rubber band around my leg and just stand on one leg, because that's all I could do even after 6 months of rehab. And you need to learn. That taught me to learn to live without regrets, because at the beginning I had a lot of regrets.
Okay.
I wish I would have been a better athlete. I wish I would have taken my body more serious, my rest more seriously. I was trying to do a lot of things at once. I was trying to be an amazing athlete and an amazing business person. My focus was divided, but I was going 100 miles an hour everywhere, and I know me, so you know that I'm like this. Like, I like to go 100 miles an hour. So this was very, very difficult for me. And eventually I woke up one day and I said, okay, that part of my life, I'm going to stop holding on to it. I'm going to stop I'm going to stop forcing myself to try to be an athlete in a broken body. Let me be the best person I can be moving forward.
It's hard to get to that point, but once you do, it's relieving, isn't it?
It was relieving. I was putting pressure on myself to come back from a catastrophic injury. Okay, just so you know, I went and got MRIs. I had arthritis in my back, 2 crushed discs. I was trying to lift with a very bad. It was very bad, and I was trying to force myself to come back from that. It just wasn't. I was recommended to get surgery. I refused, and I rehabbed myself back into good health. But it's maybe not safe for me to do the same things I was doing continuously, right? So it's okay. Yeah. I can live with this.
And I guess when you lose your ability to even walk, you become grateful for the little things like being able to walk again.
Yeah. So one of the most impactful moments for me was the first 15 to 20 days of that was pretty rough because I literally couldn't get out of bed. I actually couldn't even stand up. I couldn't get out of bed. I at some point I'd actually thought maybe I'll die. I don't know, because I was in a lot of pain. It was extreme. I wasn't used to this. And about 15 days in, my girlfriend was making coffee in the morning. And I mustered enough strength to stand for about 20 seconds so I could hug her. And it was a very impactful moment. That was like step 1 of rehab. Stand up for 20 seconds.
That's like a mental breakthrough.
It was.
Wow.
Yeah, sharing with you some of my most vulnerable stories. A lot of people don't know about that. But it was tough. It was really tough.
I can't imagine on day 14 of not being able to get up. That kind of mental torment, what's going to happen, right? The unknown. That's insane, man. I appreciate your vulnerability, man.
Thank you. I knew I was going to talk about some stuff today, so I saved the best for this podcast.
That's cool, man. And hey, and that's what we want, right? I want this podcast to be impactful. I want millions of people to see this and to hear the comeback stories, right? And inspire people to live their best lives. This is what it's about, man. I love this. So talk about heavy, vulnerable stuff. What are a couple of your big regrets in life? And why?
You know what? I don't live with a lot of regrets at this point in time. But if I would have regrets, it's that I regret that I regret that I didn't take things seriously enough sooner. And here's what I mean by that. When I was about 19 or 20, I had a mental breakthrough.
Okay.
Because I was on a bad path I was on a very bad path up until I was maybe 16 or 17. And then I realized I was on a bad path and I started to change towards the better path. But I didn't take my life seriously and I didn't value myself. Because I didn't place value on myself, I didn't strive for the types of things that I could have. I wasn't living to my potential, is what I'm telling you. Whatever my real potential was, I only saw myself as 10% of what I maybe could do, maybe even less than 10%, because of my own self-image, my own things that I had to work through. And something changed when I was 20. I started to believe in myself.
Wow.
But this takes time. For me, it's a process where my belief, my confidence in myself started to ratchet up over time. But if I have a regret, it's that the 10-year-old Michael Lee would believe in himself. Should have believed in himself more. The 15-year-old Michael Lee should have believed in himself more.
You know what? That's a regret that, I'm just making a note. Okay. That's a regret that I share. It's only recently that I still struggle with like believing in myself. Like, yes, I'm doing this podcast. Yes, I'm trying new things, but it's like there's a battle within me because I don't feel like, I'm equipped or adequate. Like, who am I to start this podcast? Who am I to interview people, right? Like, I wasted my 20s just scraping by the bare minimum, not reaching my potential at all. And like really not taking myself or my life seriously or understanding that time goes by, And so like you're talking about a breakthrough. I really didn't have a breakthrough mentally, until I was in my mid-30s. And so, that's a massive regret I share as well. The only difference is mine lasted a lot longer, And even now, I feel like I'm just beginning to start tapping into my potential.
I believe that this is called imposter syndrome. And I think we all struggle with it. And even if we start to not struggle with it, the second that we get to the next phase, the next step, the imposter syndrome shows up again. It doesn't go away, It just keeps coming back. But I guess over time we learn to deal with it differently.
Okay.
Right? We recognize it now. We stare it in the face, and we blow through it, right?
That's cool. That's cool, man. So you say right now you don't live with a lot of regrets.
Not a lot.
Okay.
But everything we've discussed so far, I deal with a lot of the same mental struggles. I beat myself up. I have imposter syndrome. All these things. But I'm the kind of person that if I see something that I think I should do, I'm ultimately going to go for it. My regrets are not taking action sooner. Essentially.
That's a massive, massive regret of mine. Like in my 20s, I took very little action. I didn't start buying real estate till I was in my late 20s. And I had a very mediocre job and I really didn't push myself all that much. And I really regret that.
I'm finding an interesting theme to this conversation. Every time we're in action mode, the regrets are disappearing. And when we're slowing down and stopping and beating ourselves up, that's when they resurface, the awful regrets.
I like that. I like that. Regrets disappear with action.
I would say purposeful action.
Right, not just any kind of action.
Not just any kind.
That's cool. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that.
Man, I'm loving this call, man. I really like this. I thought this was going to be really tough, this call.
Oh, dude.
I like it a lot.
It's flowing, man. It's flowing. So a lot of people do not live intentionally. And, we talked a little bit about what holds them back, like worry, living in the past, beating themselves up. What do you think of? I interviewed Mike Kelsey last week, and he said something about ignorance. People don't know any different. What do you think of that? I guess you're not watching my podcasts, eh?
I'll have to catch up.
Have you even subscribed? Mike, have you even subscribed?
No.
Hey, Mike, when we're done, please like and subscribe, okay?
Okay, we can do that. Okay, Mike Kelsey said, when people don't live intentionally, it's a matter of ignorance. Is that what I'm...
Well, no, one of the factors is ignorance. They don't know any different. They don't know they can live a life without regrets. Or they're ignorant to the action steps. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's an element of truth to that. There's somebody very close to me who does not live intentionally. It burns me inside.
Okay.
And I would say that ignorance is definitely a factor in that person's life. But as an outside observer, to see over the years, time passes, and to see someone not live intentionally with their life and just let it go.
Like waste it, right?
I don't want to say it's wasted.
Okay.
But it's very tough to watch somebody not live on purpose and without intention. And I do believe that there is an element of ignorance. Because if they were to know that this is what they're doing to themselves, they're damaging themselves, like, not physically, but mentally speaking, Is
there a little bit of victim mindset in that, or is that something different?
I think it depends on the person.
Okay.
I feel like when people do fall into victimhood, that they are ultimately, this is going to affect their happiness, ultimately. Living in a state of victimhood makes you unhappy. I do believe this.
I like that. I believe that too.
Tough pill to swallow sometimes, right? But
anyone I know, and I know a handful of people that have that victim mindset, and they are quite negative. They're constant complainers, and they are very unhappy. And they're taking very little action in their own life.
There's a book, I think it's called Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. And this book has a lot of interesting personal development tips. And one of the ones, I read this book a very long time ago, by the way. So don't quote me on this exactly, but I believe one of the chapters talked about when you start to complain, blame, or justify, this very negatively affects you.
Wow.
And I found this is the victim mentality. Right?
Wow.
And so I read that when I was around 20. Maybe that had something to do with my mental breakthrough at that time.
It's funny because I read that a year and a half ago.
It's an incredible book.
It really is. People get stuck up on the millionaire word, like it's all about money, but it's not all about money.
That's an amazing mindset book.
Yeah, it's about the mindset, and I think that's really cool. So this person that who's living who's living with a lot of regrets, what would you say to someone like them for like what steps they should be taking to make change in their life to start living without regrets going forward?
Okay. First question, what do you want to do?
So let's say this person told you they would like to live without regrets because they have to want to.
I would turn it into a positive action. So without, instead of saying live a life without regrets, I'd be like, okay, let's talk about how to live your most fulfilled life. What do you want to do? I would frame it like that to start, and then they're going to give me their answer, right? Whatever that is. I want to go to Rome. I want to do this. I want to do that. I don't know what this person's goals are, right?
Right.
But they're going to tell you something. That's step one. Step two is, what can you do today to bring you closer to that? You don't have to make a gigantic step, right? Because if you make small steps every single day, in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you can literally transform yourself in 90 days. People can see you at one point in time in your life, and 90 days, you're a completely different person if you start to take action in one direction.
I love that. And the thing is, think of our audience too. Like I might have 10 people watch this today, but hopefully eventually, we have 100,000 people watching this, who are looking to improve themselves. And that's really the audience that we're speaking to. And I think those two things you just said are extremely helpful as a starting place.
Start taking actions, and over time, the momentum builds up.
I fully agree. And you know what? Taking action can be incredibly scary, because that's where failure lies. That's where being uncomfortable is, where you might be humiliated or humbled or whatever, right?
Absolutely. The more you shoot, the more you miss. This is how it is, right? But if you don't shoot, you miss automatically. This is what people miss. This is the part that people do not take into account. If you don't shoot, you miss automatically.
I like that. And see, I guess I'll just talk a little bit about my situation. And so I had a really hard year, right? My business didn't survive. I had a business partner. We went our separate ways, not on good terms. We had a lot of investors that we owe a lot of money. It's incredibly stressful, a lot of pressure. And it's like, okay, I'm not running and hiding. How am I going to rebuild myself? And it's scary, right? I have to rebuild myself or else I'll have regrets. And it's like, okay, so if I'm going to take the time to rebuild myself, I better be doing things I want to be doing. Hence why this podcast exists.
I'm proud of you, man. You started this podcast. We talked about it a couple times, and I thought this was an amazing idea. I could hear that energy in your voice.
And it's like,
this is what you want to do.
This is me rebuilding myself. And my point is that whatever that looks like to you, whoever's watching this, your comeback, it's up to you, the story you want to tell. And this is how I'm choosing to rebuild myself. And eventually, hopefully, this becomes a profitable venture. I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it for impact. But honestly, I'd love to be able to get paid for this and just do this all day, every day, right? And so I want to, like it was like a fork in the road. Which direction am I going to go? Take the path of least regrets. That's kind of cool, eh? That was a good one. Take the path.
I was almost expecting you to say, take the path of least resistance, which is what you always hear people say. That's the opposite of that. Take the path of least regrets.
Which a lot of times is more resistance.
You can turn that into a shirt, right?
I got to write that down. Take the path of least regrets. See, I could have gone down many different routes to rebuild myself. Like we were flipping houses. I could flip another house. I could be working on it all evening. or I could be doing a podcast in the evening. One, I hate myself doing one, and the other one is bringing me massive fulfillment and purpose. Flipping the house might make me money today, but doing the podcast will make me money tomorrow. And I believe this is what I need to be doing. And it's a battle within me, right? But I'm telling myself I have to do the thing that's going to, bring me purpose and live to my potential. And I believe right now, this is what I need to be doing to maximize my potential and impact on the world, not flipping another house.
Then you know what you need to do.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. Mike.
Take the path of least regrets. I love that.
I have to finish writing it down. I have another thought I want you to talk about.
Sure.
The pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. What does that mean to you? That is a very common thing people say, right? You either choose one or the other. Discipline today or regret tomorrow.
Okay. I'll talk to you about this is my business comeback story.
Okay.
I've started saying something to myself recently as well. The saying that I've been saying to myself is be the hero of your own story.
Wow. That's worth writing down.
Because people get caught up in the victim mode, and it happens to everybody. So some things happened to me recently, and I started to fall into that shell again, and that shell of victimhood. This is happening, that's happening. Why me? Why this? Right? I paused, and I'm like, okay, but no one's gonna save you. You got to be the hero of your own story. You got to be the hero of your own story.
I love that.
That's very empowering.
No one's coming to kick your butt. No one's coming to knock on your door and save you. No one's going to hand you a bunch of money. We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah, be the hero.
I love that.
So, okay. So you talked about the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. Okay. Let's talk about this. How I started out wholesaling and real estate and flipping houses. I had another business venture which failed in the end. We didn't, we shut down. We shut the doors. Okay, so I was involved in solar business. I had a couple partners. It was a government regulated product that we were selling. And they were accepting a limited amount of applications into the program per year across Ontario. So all these other companies were competing with them, and there's 5,000 applications that can make it in this program per year in Ontario. So every spring and summer, there'd be a wave of incoming, an influx of cash coming in as we're making a lot of sales. And then the cap would get hit on those government contracts, and fall and winter time for me would be like no money's coming in. You're just you're going from an oasis to a barren desert in terms of your income. And it happens like instantaneously too, because the government hit the cap and just no, we're not taking any more applications.
Right.
I did that for a few years straight, and then I realized I didn't want that in my life anymore, And so that business had run its course, and I wanted to get into something new. Okay. When this was in wintertime, during that barren wasteland. So I had no money on me, and I just turned 29 years old, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm turning 30 next year. I'm a failure right now. I don't have anything going for me. I actually moved back into my mother's house, and I was just staying in one room. And
Mike, what's worse, moving back in with your parents or moving in with your in-laws? What's worse?
They're both worse. They're both worse. I don't have a preference.
Okay.
I would say for me, it's embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
100%.
And my mother grew up European values and hardworking European values, and it was, go to school, get good grades, get a good job. And she'd see me doing these business ventures, and she's like, okay, well, he doesn't have any money, so he needs to go to school, get good grades, and get a good job. By the way, I dropped out of university in my 4th year, not because I couldn't finish, right? Just because I just started working on my career. So, she's at the time, I'm 29. She's looking at me like, you got to get yourself together. Yeah. And I started feeling those same thoughts. I'm 29. I'm in a room in my mom's house. I got to get my stuff together here. I had the pain of regret that I wasn't more successful. Okay. I started looking for opportunities. I came across real estate wholesaling.
Okay.
And the way I'd heard about it before, but I met someone that was very successful in it. That the moment I met them, it was like a fire ignited in me. I was like, I'm going to make it. This is what I'm going to do. And obviously, I don't know what I'm doing. I got no money. I got no contacts. I only just had the mindset like, I will succeed in this. Then the pain of discipline begins. Because in order to have success in almost anything, you got to put in the reps and sets. We're not in the physical gym now. We're not in the physical gym anymore. We're in the mental gym. And inside the mental gym is the pain of discipline.
And putting in those reps and those sets way before you see a return.
Way before. At first you see nothing, right? Yeah. I'm not going to shy away from telling you a whole bunch of things today, so no filters. Okay, I had no money on me. The way I fueled my initial marketing budget for real estate, I was driving Uber. I'm driving Uber, and I'm driving Uber, and I'm like, all right, I got $200. Let's put it in Google Ads now.
Dude,
my mom's like, you're crazy.
Like $200 in Google Ads. I mean, that can be a day, 2-3 days. It can go so fast.
Goes instantaneously almost. Yeah. And I took other side jobs. I basically took any job I needed, any job I needed to sustain myself, to put in the pain of discipline, enough reps. I needed a marketing budget to put in enough reps. So I'm like, okay, let me get the marketing budget. I'm working doing Ubers overnights and making phone calls to sellers during the day and driving all over the place. And for about 6-7 months, I actually had a sales and marketing background already. Okay. But for about 6-7 months, I didn't see a lot of traction. I had only very little wins, very minimal wins.
And when you're doing it, you don't know if you're going to see the results.
That's true. However, that fire inside of me was like, I'm not going to, I'm going to win. There's no other option.
No, but I mean, that's life, right? That's life. You have to put in the time with anything before you see the results.
You do. And so I feel like most people give up before they see a big success. And for me, it wasn't just 6 months of that pain of discipline. I've been doing sales for 10 years before I got anything big coming my way, right? So, it definitely was the pain of discipline, but it all happened instantaneously. I went from being super broke, not particularly successful, to my whole life changed pretty much in a matter of a few months, right? So it had all been building up in the background, all the personal development, all the set reps and sets, right? I already was that person. Whoever you see now, whoever you're speaking to today, I was that person already. I had been slowly transforming myself over time. Now, if I'd given up at any point in time, the pain of regret.
Got it.
Right? And I would much rather have the pain of discipline. When you look back and you're like, I did this, I did that, you look back and you're proud of yourself.
Could you imagine someone looking back 2 years from now, back to today, and seeing no progress in their life? Or me and you looking back and seeing no progress over the last 2 years? Like, that is brutal pain. That's brutal regret.
I think if you keep pushing into a certain direction, even if there aren't results on paper, you will start to feel that something has changed, right?
That's right.
So I don't believe if you push in a certain direction for 2 years straight that you're not going to see any results. Like, something.
I agree with you. It's so easy to do nothing. Then 2 years goes by and you have nothing to show for yourself.
Well, the pain of regret, right? And I think, honestly, I feel like 90% of people do this. It's not the people that feel the pain of discipline. We're talking about a minority of the population here. It's not for everybody.
I guess going with that is setting goals, having a purpose, having clarity in your life, taking stock of where you are and being willing to look in the mirror, and self-reflect. Like, I think that goes along with it.
I think, clarity. Okay, I have my own thoughts on clarity. I'll just share it really quickly.
Okay.
So my goals actually get bigger and bigger as I go. So some people say I'm kind of like an unclear person. I think here's what I want, then I change my mind and I want something else, right? But I think if you don't know the general direction you're trying, but the general direction you're going in, that's a problem. But if you say, here's where I'm trying to get, I'm trying to move in this direction, maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know exactly how successful you want to be. Maybe you don't know exactly how much, let's make it a non-business conversation. Let's talk about health and fitness for a second. Maybe you don't know what your ideal body is, but are you working towards it? This is what I mean. Right. And if you are working towards it, you're going to start to see that over time it's transforming and it's getting towards your ideal. But maybe your goal of what's ideal might change now. It might get your standards might get a little higher. This is okay.
That's
nothing wrong with that.
I agree. Remember what I told you my goal was for 2023 with this podcast? You don't remember.
What's your goal for 2023?
100,000 subscribers.
Okay.
And the action steps.
You told me that a week ago. I apologize.
Yeah, it was over like 5 days ago. Listen, man, you got a lot going on. It's okay. The action steps to get that goal done is 1 podcast a week being aired and make continual improvements and posting a short a day. That's what I'm going to do, and hire an editing and publishing team.
I like it.
So those are the action steps to reach that goal. And if I hit 100,000 subscribers next year, man, I'm ecstatic, because that's 100,000 worth of value. Like, I want this to get out. I want people to see this, man. This is cool. And I agree. As you set goals, as you accomplish smaller goals, your goals need to get bigger. And that's where you'll find your purpose. If you don't know what your purpose is, what you want to do, things like that, you got to take action. Pick something. You'll figure out if you love it or if you hate it, but at least you'll know. And then by taking that path, it'll lead you in another direction, and you will figure out what you really want to do. What do you think of that?
I 100% agree. 100% agree.
That's cool.
This is great, man.
Who knows? Maybe me doing this podcast, and then I'll be like the host of The Price is Right one day or something. Who knows?
Jeopardy.
Jeopardy. Oh, Dude,
What's that other one? What's that other one with Steve Harvey? You can replace Steve Harvey.
Man, Steve Harvey. I'm a big fan of Steve Harvey, man. Like everything he says, I'm always sharing.
Family Feud.
Family Feud. But my goal, so I got some big goals for guests for this podcast. I have a list, and on that list, Steve Harvey's on there.
Go for it, man. I mean, I think you shared some of your initial list, and you got some heavy hitters on there.
That have already agreed to come. Yes, and
I'm honored that I'm included in this list.
and I'm honored. I'm honored they said yes to me.
That's wild, man.
Mike, you know what would blow my mind? Joe Rogan messages me and says, "Hey, catch the next flight down to Texas. Let's do a podcast." Dude, I'm on the next flight, man.
You stay on the path, things will happen, right?
Exactly. And so it's amazing that action is so connected to regrets.
I think we actually unpacked that pretty good right now. Mm-hmm. I never, you know what, and I had never really dwelled on that, but that was, I would say, the main theme of what we just talked about. You know. So,
Mike, okay, we've talked a lot. Now, how would you live differently if you only had 12 months left? You knew you had 12 months left. What would you do different?
I'm going to do what I want to do. And I don't care what anybody thinks.
Okay. Meaning?
Now, I'm not talking about disrespecting people.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about being disrespectful. I'm talking about, okay, every day is precious. And so I'm going to do exactly what I want to do today, tomorrow, whenever. And I'm not talking about, eating potato chips and sitting on a couch. I'm talking about living a very fulfilling life and making an impact.
You know what?
These are the things that matter.
I did a short a few days ago, and I've done 4 shorts. Most of them have had 7 views. The one I did had 1,000 views, and some of the comments, I deleted some of the comments. It was about what would you do if you only had 12 months to live. One guy says, "Oh, he'd start doing drugs and all this stuff. Right? You just party." What? Not the point. Not what I'm trying to get at here. So, Mike, what would you change in your life practically if you knew you only had 12 months?
Okay. I'm going to do the kind of work that I feel the most fulfilling. Feel that is the most fulfilling, and whatever that is at that given time, right? Okay. That might change. I don't even really know, to be honest. That could change day to day. I'm going to wake up in the right location, wherever that is. So there'd be some traveling. I'm going to eat the right foods, whatever that is. I'm not talking about eating ice cream. I'm talking about.
No, I mean, if you want to actually make the most of those 12 months, eating extremely healthy will make you feel good and make you want to do stuff.
Yeah. I'm not talking about, going out and doing, whatever that other guy said, doing drugs, whatever. I want to feel great. And I'm going to do the things that make me feel great.
If I had 12 months left, I think I would shut the TV off and never turn it on again.
Whew. Yeah, I mean, it's sucking a lot of time.
It is.
You know what I would do for sure? My anger threshold would change drastically.
Okay. Explain.
Let's for 1 year make my anger untouchable. Let's for 1 year make my emotions, my negative emotions untouchable. We can't even get in there.
Okay. I like that.
You become the unbreakable person. Now, maybe you're gonna, be at the airport and someone accidentally steps on your brand new shoes or whatever. There's delays I'm just using the airport as an example because the airport drives me so crazy right now. Delays, whatever. Flights get canceled. Are you gonna let that bother you if you only have 12 months to live? It's not even worth it's not even worth the time it takes to get upset about it anymore.
No, it's not, because you're thinking such big picture.
Yeah.
You're not thinking in the moment. You're thinking like different perspective.
I have a confession to make.
Let's go.
I have gotten extremely mad at the airport before.
Well, let me tell you. I do not get physical when I'm angry. Okay. I used to have a really bad temper. I used to wreck my phones and whatever, right? But I never hit stuff. And I was so angry in the Detroit airport that I punched the soap dispenser in the men's bathroom very, very hard. And I've never done that before, and I've never done it since. It was the most frustrating experience of my life. So I guess the moral of the story is like avoid airports.
That soap dispenser cleaned up your act real quick.
Right on, Mike. Mike, I've got one more question.
Go for it.
We're just over an hour into this. How do you want to be remembered?
Oh man, I saw that question. I saw that question in your list there. Oh man, I'm not ready for this one. How do I want to be remembered? I want to be remembered as the person that changed the trajectory of my family.
Okay.
Somebody that left behind a legacy.
And you're not really talking about money, are you? Or are you talking about money?
I think money's involved.
Okay.
But it's not the only thing.
Yeah. Right on.
I think the values that you leave behind make a big difference as well. And the only way that you can leave behind values is to actually express them yourself.
Mike, how old are you?
I'm 33.
Holy crap. I wasn't near as smart as you when I was 33. I'm 38 and I feel like I'm just starting to wake up.
I'm still learning stuff every day.
Mike, I see you, money, no money. I see you having massive impact on this world. I don't know what that looks like, but I see you having massive impact, just like what I want to do.
Thank you.
And I think, I don't know what that looks like. I don't think you know what that looks like, but I think you're going to find your way to provide massive impact.
I don't, but you know what? I'm starting to get out there. You know this. I was in a shell for like so many years. I didn't get out at all. No one knew who I was. And I realized that you can't make impact like this. So I started getting out of my shell and getting out there. And I don't know exactly where I'm going just yet, but I'm moving in the right direction, right? So.
And there's a guy I follow, Alex Hormozy.
Yeah.
I think everyone follows him now. Like the guy blew up this past year. By the way, he's on my list of names. I'm not ready. I'm not ready, and he's not ready. So I will be reaching out. But he talks about how he didn't want to be known. He didn't want to be on social media. He didn't want any of that. Because you deal with the crazy people and all that stuff, right, in your private life. And he was having a conversation with Dean Graziosi. I'm saying his name wrong.
Graziosi. I think that's how you say it. Don't quote me on that.
And saying to Dean, how do you do it? Why do you do it? And Dean told him, If that's the price he has to pay to have massive impact, he'll pay that price every day. And then that's when Alex started posting like constantly because he wants massive impact. The thing is, once you've made the money, what else is there? It's impact. Like once you've made the money, once you've fulfilled all those little goals that you had, people want to help people, and it's impact. And so I just think that's incredible. And I think both me and you are on that path, whatever that looks like.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, dude. So listen, before we wrap it up, anything else you want to add? Anything you want to say?
I think I'm good. This is great. Yeah. Anything else I want to say? If you're looking to live a life with no regrets, take massive action.
And don't let that intimidate you. Start with small steps.
Take steps.
Any
steps will do at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
But first you learn to crawl, then you learn to walk, and eventually you will learn how to run. So this is how you move in the right direction. Like
start with very small changes, and keep making those, and that will make a massive change in direction.
Agreed.
Awesome, man. Mike, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, man. Thanks, everyone. And please like and subscribe if you want to see more amazing podcasts.
You got one subscriber. You caught me, but I'm going to subscribe right now.
You're subscribing right now?
Yeah.
That'll take you from 29 to 30 subscribers. I'm getting closer to that 100,000. All right. Good night, everyone.